Hi guys, welcome to another 2-minute devotion with Dad. We're still in Mark chapter 14 and they've just left the Passover, and on the way it says Jesus was talking to them, and this is the part about Jesus predicting Peter's denial. And something that I wanted to show you guys, and even something today I discovered something new which is pretty cool in the same section. So here we go. So on the way Jesus told them, "All of you will desert me. For the scriptures say, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I'm raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there." Peter said to him, "Even if everyone else deserts you, I never will." And then Jesus talks about his denial. So some things that frustrate me with the NLT when they render some words from the Old King James, a couple of times nuances get dropped off the words, or deeper meanings. And here is an example that I want to show you. So when Jesus says, "All of you will desert me," it sort of just talks about, just hiding, running, whatever, dropping off. Just want to show you something that how the Old King James renders it in the Greek, and it's pretty interesting. So we're in Mark 14, and the word, I'll just go back because I've skipped a bit here. Mark 14:27, and we go down to all ye, it says, shall be offended because of me. Now, if you've been watching all of these, you'll be familiar with this word, scandalizo. So the scandalizo means to put a stumbling block or impediment in the way upon which another may trip and fall, a metaphor to offend. And that's why the Old King James says, shall be offended because of me. And then there's other various interpretations of that word for different contexts. So there's quite a few different things. As we go down, this is where it gets interesting. In Thayer's Greek lexicon, it actually breaks it down even more. And so in the bold, you can see to put a stumbling block or impediment in the way, to be a stumbling block, to make cause to stumble, to offend. Now, if you go down to A, entice to sin, and then there's a few verses that use that context, to be offended, made to stumble. If we go down to B, read the wording here. To cause a person to begin to distrust and desert the one whom he ought to trust and obey, to cause to fall away. And in the passive, to fall away, to stumble. And then we get our list of verses, and in here is Mark 14, verse 29. Now, this one is where Peter says, even if anyone else deserts you, I never will. Let's keep going. To be offended in one, to find occasion of stumbling in, that is, to see in another what I disapprove of and what hinders me from acknowledging his authority. Here's these other verses, among which is Mark 14:27. Now, Mark 14:27 is, on the way Jesus told them, all of you will desert me. For the scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. Why is this important? Well, this is the untrained, uneducated Jamie here, so it could be wrong. However, isn't it interesting that when, it was well known throughout when I say well known, you might not know this, but it was known back then that the people who believed in Jesus were expecting him to become a political leader that rises up and takes over the Romans and shuts them down and rules the world. And so many people believed in Jesus, quote, the Messiah, unquote, as this person who would take over Rome, take authority, and be that person in the flesh that stays and lives forever. However, now we're in a situation where Jesus is predicting the concept that he's going to be betrayed and handed over to the Romans. And therefore he's now under their control and actually captive by them. So this political figure, this leader that rises up, is now in their custody. So wouldn't this cause someone to see in Jesus what they disapprove of and something that hinders them from acknowledging Jesus' authority now, that would be a situation where this rendering of the desert would actually come into play. And then Peter used, I guess, a less form of this, because he is now not, he probably never was in the position where he disapproved of Jesus's actions, but up here in closer to B, he began to distrust and desert, or even if you talk metaphorically about the concept of distrusting and deserting the one whom he ought to trust and obey. So there's a slight difference here. But isn't that fascinating how the Thayer's Greek lexicon actually picks up these differences in the words that offend or be offended, scandalizo, that are translated to the same word desert in our normal English. So I thought that was quite fascinating, and to me it was significant. So if we were to go back and read this now, so you can see it, because I was reading it in the Bible, all of you will start to disagree with disapprove of my authority and blah 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 blah. And Peter said, even if I just start to doubt you or whatever, even if everyone else does, I never will. So that puts a whole new light on this little section here. And it's something that I just feel we need to sometimes be conscious of with these Greek words. And it doesn't change the fact of what happened, but for me, it gives deeper meaning into even what Jesus was talking about when he was talking about these things. And he knew everybody's hearts. He knew everybody's minds, where they were, how they would respond. And just think, he hasn't changed. So he knows your heart. He knows your mind. He knows my mind and heart. And he cannot be tricked. He cannot be mocked. He cannot be fooled. Jesus knows. And so I guess the question, the challenge today is, what are we going to do with that knowledge now that we know that he knows? It's like, oh, wow, he knows our hearts. He knows our motives. He knows what we're thinking. We need to change our thinking and our hearts and our motives to be sincere before him and to be honest with ourselves. Because I don't know, Jesus talks about Peter's denial over here when he gets arrested and betrayed. Maybe Peter already is in a state of denial here, because he's in denial about what he's about to do. So it's almost a double meaning here. I never thought of it until I was actually saying these words. So, Peter's already in a state of denial, even though he is yet to deny Jesus, because he's denial about what Jesus is talking about. So it's time to get real with ourselves. It's time to get real before God and be honest with ourselves and all these things that apply. And Jesus knows our hearts. It's time for us to acknowledge our hearts. So anyway, that's a bit of a different one. But yeah, just want to encourage you, go back, just pick any word, literally any word in this New Testament or Old Testament. Go to the Blue Bible, find out what the original word is, and often it'll be rendered quite literally, so it's not always the case. But just every now and then you find this little gem of like, wow, such a different meaning with a relatively common word. I'll leave it there. Bless you guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.